A newborn's first breath is almost silent, not the kind of silence that means nothing is happening. The kind of silence that exists before something impossible becomes real. A small body lies beneath a sky untouched by cities. The ground is cold. The air smells of wet earth, smoke, and animal skin. Around her, a few figures move carefully in the darkness. Their hands are rough from survival. Their faces are hidden by shadows. They do not have medicine. They do not have machines. They do not have words for what is happening, but they understand one thing. A new human life is arriving, thousands of years before hospitals, before midwives with written knowledge, before anyone understood anatomy. A woman somewhere in the prehistoric world went through the same terrifying and extraordinary process that connects every human being alive today. Birth. We often imagine the past as a simpler time, a world where humans lived closer to nature, where life followed a natural rhythm, where instincts guided everything. But that image is incomplete, because giving birth in the prehistoric world was not a peaceful return to nature. It was one of the most dangerous moments a human could experience. And hidden inside this ancient struggle is one of the greatest paradoxes of human evolution. The same thing that made us vulnerable may also have been the thing that made us human. Most people imagine childbirth as a biological event, a process controlled by the body, a natural mechanism that has existed for millions of years. And in many ways, that is true. But human birth is different, strangely different. Compared with almost every other mammal, humans experience a uniquely difficult form of childbirth. A giraffe enters the world by falling several feet from its mother's body. Many animals are born quickly, instinctively, and with relatively little assistance. But humans arrive slowly, painfully, vulnerably. A human baby enters the world with a head unusually large compared with the size of the birth canal. And that is not an accident. It is the result of an ancient evolutionary conflict. The human brain grew larger, much larger, but the human body also adapted for another purpose: walking upright. Two powerful evolutionary advantages collided inside the human pelvis. A larger brain required more space. A bipedal body required a narrower structure. Evolution had created a biological compromise, and every human birth became the result of that ancient negotiation. A child carrying the future of the species, passing through a body shaped by millions of years of adaptation. But prehistoric childbirth was not simply a biological challenge. It was a social one, because humans discovered something unusual. Birth was rarely faced alone, not because ancient humans were weak, but because humans evolved as cooperative beings. A lone animal survives through strength. Humans survived through connection. Around a fire, inside a temporary shelter, or beneath a rocky overhang, childbirth became a moment where knowledge was transferred across generations. An older woman who had witnessed dozens of births. A mother who remembered what worked. A community that understood the fragile boundary between life and death. The first medical knowledge of humanity may not have been written in books. It may have been whispered beside prehistoric fires, passed from one generation to the next. A collection of observations, instincts, and experiences carried through time. But there is something unsettling about this, because for all their knowledge, they were still facing something they could not control. Imagine a prehistoric woman thousands of years ago. There is no hospital waiting nearby, no emergency room, no surgical intervention, no understanding of bacteria, no antibiotics. The world around her is alive with threats: predators, infections, hunger, weather. And now another danger appears from within her own body. The process that creates life could also take it away. Researchers studying prehistoric remains have discovered evidence that complications during pregnancy and childbirth affected ancient populations. The bones tell only part of the story. A skeleton cannot reveal fear. It cannot reveal the moment before a child is born. It cannot reveal the silence of the people waiting outside. But it leaves behind a message. Human survival was never guaranteed. Every generation exists because countless individuals survived moments that could have ended differently. Every person alive today is connected to an unbroken chain of births stretching back hundreds of thousands of years, and every link in that chain was fragile. The most surprising part is that prehistoric humans did not simply endure childbirth. They adapted around it. The environment changed, the tools changed, the cultures changed, but one pattern remained constant. Birth was never just a physical event. It was a transformation, a moment where an individual became responsible for something beyond themselves, a moment where a community witnessed the continuation of its own existence. Because before there were cities, before there were written languages, before there were monuments, there was a human being protecting another human being, a mother holding a child. And that simple act may be one of the oldest stories humanity has ever told. For millions of years, birth was not a crisis. It was simply part of survival. A mammal was born, instinct took over, and life continued. But somewhere along humanity's evolutionary path, something changed. The human body began carrying a contradiction that would define our species. We became creatures with enormous minds, inside bodies that were never perfectly designed to deliver them. Most people think evolution creates perfection, a gradual process that improves life until organisms become perfectly adapted to their environment. But evolution does not design. It compromises. It works with what already exists. It modifies old structures. It builds the future from the remains of the past. And the human body is a record of those compromises. Our spine still carries the memory of our ancestors walking on four legs. Our shoulders still reflect a climbing past, and the human pelvis carries the evidence of a dramatic evolutionary battle. The moment our ancestors began walking upright, everything changed. A four-legged animal has a different relationship with gravity. The pelvis can be shaped differently. The birth canal can be wider. But walking on two legs requires stability. The pelvis became narrower. Then another transformation began. The human brain expanded. Slowly, across generations, our ancestors became more intelligent, more socially complex, more capable of planning, creating, and communicating. The brain that allowed humans to control fire, build tools, and create civilizations also created a new problem. The human baby became harder to deliver. The greatest achievement of evolution became one of its greatest challenges. Scientists sometimes refer to this as the obstetric dilemma, a conflict between two evolutionary pressures: a body designed for movement and a brain designed for complexity. The result is something extraordinary. Human babies are born more helpless than almost any other animal. A newborn horse can stand within minutes. A newborn human cannot even hold its own head. It enters the world unfinished, dependent, completely vulnerable. At first glance, this appears like a weakness. But hidden inside this weakness is one of humanity's greatest advantages. Because the human child's long development forced humans to become social. A baby that cannot survive alone requires cooperation. It requires protection. It requires relationships. The helplessness of human infants may have shaped the strength of human communities. The very thing that made us vulnerable may have forced us to become connected. But prehistoric childbirth was not only a physical battle, it was also a psychological one. Imagine waiting beside a woman in labor thousands of years ago. The fire burns low. The night outside is silent. There is no certainty, no measurement, no prediction, only observation. The expression on her face, the rhythm of her breathing, the movements of those around her. Every person present understands the same reality. Something is happening that cannot be reversed. A new life is approaching, or something may go terribly wrong. This uncertainty created something deeply human: ritual. Across cultures and throughout history, childbirth has often been surrounded by symbolic actions: sounds, movements, objects, beliefs. Not because ancient people misunderstood birth, but because humans have always searched for meaning during moments they cannot control. Birth and death are the two great boundaries of human existence, and both have always carried mystery. Archaeologists studying ancient human societies have found clues suggesting that women played central roles in birth knowledge. The knowledge was practical: which plants helped, which positions reduced discomfort, which signs indicated danger, which experiences meant something unusual was happening. But this knowledge was not stored in institutions. It lived inside people, inside memories, inside conversations, inside generations of women observing other women. A prehistoric birth attendant was not simply helping a child enter the world. She was carrying thousands of years of accumulated human experience. A living archive. A person whose knowledge existed only because someone before her had survived long enough to pass it on. And yet, there is a darker side to this story. Because the same human intelligence that created cooperation also created fear. For prehistoric communities, childbirth represented something beyond biology. It was proof that life could continue. But it was also a reminder that life could disappear. A mother could survive 100 dangers, a predator, a harsh winter, a period of starvation, and still face one final, unpredictable moment, the creation of life itself. This is perhaps the strangest truth about human existence. We often imagine survival as a battle against the outside world, against nature, against predators, against the environment. But sometimes the greatest battles happen inside us. Every human being begins with a journey through danger. Before we speak our first words, before we take our first steps, before we understand the world around us, we pass through the oldest challenge our species has ever faced: birth. A process that has happened billions of times, yet every single time it is completely unique. And then something remarkable happened. Humans did not simply adapt to childbirth. They transformed the world around childbirth. They created tools, knowledge, buildings dedicated to protecting a moment that once happened only beside fires and in darkness. But this progress created another illusion: the belief that we had escaped our ancient past, that modern technology had separated us from the fragile humans who came before us. But the truth is more complicated. Because beneath the machines, beneath the hospitals, beneath the scientific language, the same ancient event is still happening. A human body creating another human body. The same biological process that connected us to our ancestors is still unfolding today. And hidden inside every modern birth is a story that began long before civilization itself. For most of human history, birth happened without witnesses from the outside world. No records, no photographs, no written accounts, only memories, only stories, only the traces left behind in the bodies and cultures of those who came before us. And perhaps that is why childbirth remains one of the most mysterious events in human existence. Because it represents a moment where the future appears from nowhere. A person who did not exist moments before suddenly becomes part of reality. A new consciousness enters the world, a new observer, a new story. Most people think human history began with great inventions: the first tools, the first cities, the first written words. But that is not where our story truly begins. Before every civilization, before every discovery, before every empire and every idea, there was a mother giving birth. There was someone protecting a fragile new life. There was a small group of humans gathered around a single moment that carried the future of their entire existence. Civilization was not built only by hunters, builders, or warriors. It was built by countless unseen moments where one generation successfully created the next. The survival of humanity was never guaranteed by strength alone. It depended on vulnerability. This creates a strange paradox. The most helpless human being, a newborn child, may also represent the greatest symbol of human progress. Because every baby is a reminder that humans are not born ready. We become ready. Unlike many animals, we enter the world incomplete. Our instincts are limited. Our knowledge is absent. Everything that makes us human must be learned. Language, culture, memory, compassion, technology. A child is not simply born into humanity. A child is slowly created by humanity. And that process begins at the very first moment of life. Researchers studying human evolution have increasingly recognized that cooperation was not a side effect of our species. It was one of the forces that shaped us. Humans survived not because individuals became stronger than nature. They survived because they became stronger together. The prehistoric mother was not alone. The infant was not only her responsibility, the survival of the child belonged to the group. And that may have been one of the earliest foundations of human society. Before governments, before laws, before written rules, there was a simple understanding: someone vulnerable must be protected. But there is another question hidden beneath this story. Why did humans go through such difficulty to create a species that could think, imagine, and question its own existence? Why did evolution produce creatures capable of understanding the universe, while forcing them to begin life in such a fragile state? Scientists can explain the biology. They can explain the pelvis, the brain, the evolutionary pressures, but there remains something deeper, the meaning we attach to the beginning of life. Because humans do not only survive, we reflect, we look backward, we ask where we came from, and every birth is a quiet answer. Imagine returning to that prehistoric night. The fire is fading. The world outside is unknown. A group of humans sits inside a small shelter. They have no idea what the future will become. They cannot imagine cities reaching into the sky. They cannot imagine machines traveling beyond Earth. They cannot imagine billions of humans connected across the planet. They only know one thing. A child has arrived. A new life is breathing. And in that moment, they are unknowingly protecting the future of humanity. The distance between that ancient child and us is almost impossible to understand. Thousands of generations separate us. Different languages, different continents, different worlds. Yet the connection is unbroken. Every person alive today carries within them the success of countless births that happened before them. Every ancestor survived long enough for another life to begin. Every generation stood at the same fragile doorway. And somehow, humanity continued. Perhaps the greatest mystery of prehistoric childbirth is not how difficult it was. Perhaps the greater mystery is that it happened at all. Against disease, against danger, against uncertainty, against the countless moments when the chain could have ended. A child was born, then another, then another. A quiet repetition that became the foundation of everything humans have ever created. The buildings, the languages, the discoveries, the dreams, all of it began the same way, with a vulnerable human life entering a dangerous world. Today, birth often happens surrounded by technology. Machines monitor the heartbeat. Doctors measure every movement. Modern medicine has transformed survival in ways prehistoric humans could never have imagined. And yet, beneath all of this progress, the essential moment remains unchanged. A human being arrives, a first breath, a first heartbeat, a transition from nothing known into existence. The prehistoric mother looking into the face of her newborn child and the modern parent doing the same are separated by thousands of years. But emotionally, they stand in the same place, at the edge of the unknown, holding something impossibly small and impossibly important, because every human being begins as a question, a possibility, a future that has not happened yet. And maybe that is the most haunting truth hidden in the story of prehistoric birth. Humanity was not created by the strongest, not by the fastest, not by those who feared vulnerability. It was created by those who protected it, a species built not only on survival, but on care, not only on intelligence, but on connection, not only on the ability to change the world, but on the simple act of bringing someone new into it. Because before humans shaped history, before humans built civilizations, before humans looked toward the stars, there was only a quiet moment in the darkness. A mother. A child. And the first breath of a future that nobody could see yet.